0n Christmas Eve. A friend of mine named Paul received an automobile from his brother as Christmas present. On Christmas Eve, when Paul came out of his office, a street urchin was walking around the shining new car, admiring it. "Is this your car, mister?" he said. Paul nodded. "My brother gave it to me for Christmas." The boy was astounded. "You mean your brother gave it to you, and didn't cost you anything?" "Boy, I wish," he hesitated. Of course Paul knew what he was going to wish for. He was going to wish he had a brother like that. But what the lad said jarred Paul all the way down his heels. "I wished," the boy went on, "that I could be a brother like that." Paul looked at the boy in astonishment, then impulsively he added, "Would you like to take a ride in my car?" "Oh, yes. I'd love that." After a short ride, the boy turned his eyes aglow, said, "Mister, would you mind driving in front of my house?" Paul smiled a little. He thought he knew what the lad wanted. He wanted to show his neighbors that he could ride home in a big automobile. But Paul was wrong again. "Would you stop at those with 2 steps?" the boy asked. He ran upstairs. Then in a little while, Paul heard him coming back, but he was not coming fast. He was carrying his little crippled brother. He set him down on the bottom step. Then a sort of squeezed up against him and pointed to the car. "There she is, buddy, just like I told you upstairs. His brother gave it to him for Christmas and didn't cost him a cent. And someday, I'm gonna give you one just like it. Then you can see for yourself all the pretty things in the Christmas windows that I was trying to tell you about." Paul got off and lifted the lad into the front of his car. The shining-eyed old brother climbed in beside him. And 3 of them began a memorable holiday ride. That Christmas Eve, Paul learned what Jesus meant when he said, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." Not a simple dress. "Do you like my dress?" she asked of a passing stranger. "My mommy made it just for me," she said with a tear in her eyes. "Well, I think it's very pretty, so tell me, little one, why are you crying?" With a quiver in her voice, the little girl answered. "After mommy made me this dress, she had to go away." "Well, now," said the lady, "with a little girl like you waiting for her, I'm sure she'll be right back." "No ma'am, you don't understand," said the child through her tears, "my daddy said she's up in heaven now with grandfather." Finally the woman realized what the child meant, and why she was crying. Kneeling down, she gently cradled the child in her arms, and together they cried for the mommy that was gone. Then suddenly the little girl did something that the woman thought was a bit strange. She stopped crying, stepped back from the woman and began to sing. She sang so softly that it was almost a whisper. It was the sweetest sound the woman had ever heard, almost like the song of a very small bird. After the child stopped singing, she explained to the lady, "My mommy used to sing that song to me before she went away, and she made me promise to sing it whenever I started crying and it would make me stop. See," she exclaimed, "it did, and now my eyes are dry." As the woman turned to go, the little girl grabbed her sleeve. "Ma'am, can you stay just a minute? I want to show you something." "Of course," she answered. "What do you want me to see?" Pointing to a spot on her dress, she said, "Right here is where my mommy kissed my dress, and here," pointing to another spot, "and here is another kiss, and here, and here. Mommy said that she put all those kisses on my dress so that I would have her kisses for every boo-boo that made me cry." Then the lady realized that she wasn't just looking at a dress, no, she was looking at a mother, who knew that she was going away and would not be there to kiss away the hurts that she knew her daughter would get. So she took all the love she had for her beautiful little girl and put them into this dress, which her child now so proudly wore. She no longer saw a little girl in a simple dress. She saw a child wrapped in her mother's love. A father's love. Daddy just didn't know how to show love. It was Mom who held the family together. He just went to work every day and came home. She'd have a list of sins we'd committed and he'd scold us about them. Once when I stole a candy bar, he made me take it back and tell the man I stole it and that I'd pay for it. But it was Mom who understood I was just a kid. I broke my leg once on the playground swing and it was Mom who held me in her arms all the way to the hospital. Dad pulled the car right up to the door of the emergency room, and when they asked him to move it saying the space was reserved for emergency vehicles, he shouted, "What do you think this is? A tour bus?" At my birthday parties, Dad always seemed sort of out of place. He just busied himself blowing up balloons, setting up tables, and running errands. It was Mom who carried the cake with the candles on it for me to blow out. When I leaf through picture albums, people always ask, what does your dad look like? Who knows? He was always fiddling around with the camera taking everyone else's picture. I must have a zillion pictures of Mom and me smiling together. I remember when Mom told him to teach me how to ride a bicycle. I told him not to let it go, but he said it was time. I fell and Mom ran to pick me up, but he waved her off. I was so mad I showed him. I got right back on that bike and rode it myself. He didn't even feel embarrassed and just smiled. When I went to college, Mom did all the writing. He just sent checks and a little note about how great his lawn looked now that I wasn't playing football on it. Whenever I called home, he acted like he wanted to talk, but he always said, "I'll get your mother." When I got married, it was Mom who cried. He just blew his nose loudly and left the room. All my life he said, "Where are you going? What time are you coming home? No, you cannot go." Daddy just didn't know how to show love, unless. Is it possible he showed it and didn't recognize it? The key of a car. A young man was getting ready to graduate from college. For many months he had admired a beautiful sports car in a dealer's showroom, and knowing his father could well afford it, he told him that was all he wanted. As graduation day approached, the young man awaited signs that his father had purchased the car. Finally, on the morning of his graduation, his father called him into his private study. His father told him how proud he was to have such a fine son, and told him how much he loved him. He handed his son a beautiful wrapped gift box. Curiously, but somewhat disappointed, the young man opened the box and found a lovely, leather-bound Bible, with the young man's name embossed in gold. Angrily, he raised his voice to his father and said, "With all your money you give me a Bible?" Then stormed out of the house, leaving the Bible. Many years passed and the young man was very successful in business. He had a beautiful home and a wonderful family, but realizing his father was very old, he thought perhaps he should go to see him. He had not seen him since that graduation day. Before he could make the arrangements, he received a telegram telling him his father had passed away, and willed all of his possessions to his son. He needed to come home immediately and take care of things. When he arrived at his father's house, sudden sadness and regret filled his heart. He began to search through his father's important papers and saw the still new Bible, just as he had left it years ago. With tears, he opened the Bible and began to turn the pages. As he was reading, a car key dropped from the back of the Bible. It had a tag with the dealer's name, the same dealer who had the sports car he had desired. On the tag was the date of his graduation, and the words, "Paid in full." How many times do we miss blessings because they are not packaged as we expected? I trust you enjoyed this. Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not, but remember that what you now have was once among the things you only hoped for. Sometimes we don't realize the good fortune we have or we could have because we expect the packaging to be different. What may appear as bad fortune may in fact be the door that is just waiting to be opened.